friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to day 2 of my 2023 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's Simply Celebrate Winter Critters, Ho Ho Holidays, Snowball Fight, Yeti or Not, Toboggan Together, and Over the Mountain Borders. So I've stamped those images out on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I'm starting with my reindeer. I have this larger one that is from the Ho Ho Holidays stamp set, and then the little strip of reindeer that are hiding behind a wall are from the Simply Celebrate Winter Critters. And they look a lot smaller when they're right next to each other, like they're stamped right now, but I'm actually going to have them set further back in the scene, so it's going to create a little bit of depth. But anyway, I'm going to color all of them the same using E53, E55, and E57. And I like to color darkest to lightest, so I'm starting with that E57 to lay in my shadows on the back of the head and the back of the body, and then a little bit on the bridge of the nose as well, so I can create a nice highlight on the rounded part of the head that is more upturned toward the light. And then I also wanted to have a softer colored belly, so I'm going to work my way down and leave some white space there for now. So I'm always starting with that E57, blending out with the E55 for the mid-tone, and then using that E53 for the highlight. And I decided to go with the E50s this time just because I think they look a lot like a deer's actual coat. I think there's a few different of the brown families that would work. You could use the E20s or the E30s, but I don't know, for some reason I was just gravitating toward the E50s for today. Plus I like that the lighter shades also are going to work really well for the lower parts of their faces and their bellies. And so it's just going to all tie in nicely together by using a whole range in the same color family. But of course you can switch it up if that's what you want to do. So if you couldn't tell just from the stamped images alone, I'm trying to recreate a scene from the movie Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by Rankin and Bass. It is my favorite Christmas movie, the one that I absolutely must watch every holiday season. There's a few that I have to watch, but this one is right at the very top of my list. And this card is inspired by our current Lawn Fanatics challenge, which is to create a card inspired by our favorite Christmas movie or song. So we've done this challenge before, the inspired by a book, movie, or song, but this is, I think, the very first time that we've ever done a Christmas edition of it. So of course I had to go with Rudolph, and when I saw that kind of lineup of reindeer from the Simply Celebrate Winter Critters, I knew that they would be perfect for, you know, the part where it says all of the other reindeer who used to laugh and call him names, where that kind of comes to life in the movie. So that's where the whole concept of this card started to come together, and then I did like a deep dive through my Lawn Fawn stash to look for images that would work throughout the scene. So I'm moving on to the lighter parts of their bodies, and like I said, I'm going to use the lighter E50s. I'm going to keep that E53, which was the lightest of the darker shades, and now it's going to become the darkest of my lighter shades, so it works great to kind of transition between the two groupings. And then I'll blend that out with the E51 as my mid-tone, and then use the E50 for my highlight. So I'm going to fill in Rudolph's face and then all of the other little reindeer. And I left a little bit of white still on the belly and the tail for the bigger one, who's going to be Rudolph. Then I'm going to switch to some darker brown shades using E44, E47, and E49 for the horns and the hooves. The E49 is quite dark, so you could leave it off of this combo entirely if you wanted to. The areas that I'm coloring in are super tiny, and you could probably get away with just 2 shades if you wanted to. but I went ahead and added it in there just for a little bit of extra depth, even if it's only just the slightest little bit. But I laid in that E49 first, kind of at the base of the antlers and the back side of the hooves. And then for the littler ones, I did it on the outer edges of the hooves with the highlight in the inside. And then blend it out with the E47, and then I'll use the E44 to just fill everything else in. Just using the very tips of my markers so I can get in all those little thin places, because they are quite small, both the antlers and the little hooves. It's, you know, a very small little space to color, so you just want to hold that pen almost straight up and down so that you get just the very tip of the nib, and then don't accidentally color outside of the lines, because the darker colors are a bit harder to clean up. Not that they're impossible, but it's easier if you just don't go out of the lines in the first place. And then I did do the pole for my flag, and I should have done the trunk of the Christmas tree at that point, but I forgot and kind of moved on to the rest of it. And for that, I'm using G40, G43, and G46. Putting that darkest shade, the G46, up under the top section of each of the parts of the tree, and then also a little shading under the baubles that are strung across it. And then actually, while I am coloring this panel, I'm actually coloring a few more off screen with the same exact colors. I just wanted to save some time in the video. So you saw that I was using the over the mountain borders at the beginning. I've got a panel that has the mountains on it, and then I've got another panel that has some trees on it. So I'm just coloring those off to the side in between, and I'll show you them when I get to the end of the coloring as they're finished. But I just didn't want the video to get too long. I know your time is valuable, so I tried to simplify, and like I said, I used the same exact shades as I did for the coloring that you actually do see on screen, so you didn't really miss anything. Moving on to Santa's skin, and I'm coloring him as he is in the movie. So I used E00 and E11 for his face and hands. And then for the rest of his little Santa suit, I'm going to use R24, R29, and R39, which is my favorite Christmas red combo. It's my favorite red combo in general, but it works really great for Christmas. That R39 really adds a lot of depth in the shadows, and that R29 is like the perfect red. Like if you were only going to color something with one shade of red and not use any shading, the R29 is just like perfect. And then that R24 just has that bit of brightness in it, a bit of coral. It's very warm and cozy, which I think really lends it well to Christmas things. It reminds me of like a crackling fire in the fireplace, and it's just really beautiful, and especially in combination with these other two shades. I'm also going to do the flag that's going to kind of signify the course of the reindeer games, and then Rudolph's nose I just did with the lightest two shades there. For the baubles on the tree, I also did take a little bit of liberty and added in some red ones there. I just wanted some more pops of that red because it's such a beautiful, vibrant color for Christmas. Very traditional, and so I went ahead and added that in there. Although the song that Sam the Snowman sings is Silver and Gold, and he's talking about the decorations on the Christmas tree. So I'm pretty sure that all of the decorations on the Christmas tree and the Christmas tree forest in the movie are all silver and gold, but like I said, it's a Christmas card, and I just decided to add in a bit of red. But I did use W00, W1, and W3 for Santa's beard, and then also for the silver ornaments on the tree. And then I'm going to move on to some darker grays in that same warm gray family. I'm using W5, W7, and W9 for the black bits of Santa's belt and his boots. and I just put the color on the outer edge for his belt and then on the inner edge for his boots, because it would be lighter where around his round belly, but also the light would reflect off his toes. I use Y21 and Y26 for the gold decorations on the Christmas tree and his gold belt buckle. And then I used C0, C1, and C3 to add some shading to the white parts of his Santa suit. I just wanted to go very different from his beard because obviously his beard and his mustache are natural hair and the white parts of his Santa suit are fabric. So I just wanted to really separate them out by going in very different tones. And then I'm going to use BG000, BG10, and BG11 for the bricks of snow that are going to make up the wall that the reindeer are behind. Also that little swoosh thing, that was the only thing that I used from Toboggan Together, and I ended up not using it on the card in the end because there wasn't a die for it. And there was a very similar one in Yeti or Not, which I didn't notice at the beginning, or I could have just used that one, but that's the one I ended up using in the final version of the card. I did want to give Santa and Rudolph and all of the other reindeer some rosy cheeks, so I used R20 for that, just adding a little bit of that first and blended out with the R00 to kind of soften it into their skin or fur. And then I took a black Sakura Jelly Roll pen and went over the eyes of all of the reindeer that have their eyes open to make them bright and shiny. And then I trimmed everything out with the matching dies, including the other panels, which I'll show you right now. So my background is actually going to be directly on my card base. Only a very small amount of sky is going to show at the top. So rather than using a whole nother panel, I just decided to do it right onto the card base. It is a Blue Jay card base from Lawn Fawn that I scored and folded to a standard A2 size card. And I'm adding some black soot distress oxide ink to the top and two sides to just create a bit of depth. And then I'll take some Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, and I'm going to add that to a block. It's kind of thick, and I want to make it a bit more fluid, so I'm going to add some water to that until it's at a nice consistency. And then I'll tap that over the background, and I'm only worrying about the top, like I said, because that's the only part that's going to show. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to let this card dry completely before moving on to the next step, and that is to start adding in my scene. So I'm going to take the mountains first and just glue that down. So I've trimmed that down to be 4 1/4 wide so that it will fit perfectly on my card front, and I'm just going to smooth that down into place where I want it. And then next I need to build my little ice wall that the reindeer are going to be behind. So because of the shape of these, I do need to kind of glue them together. So I've cut out 3 of these little brick structures, and I'm overlapping them in such a way that the bottom 2 rows are going to line up nicely. And I'm just making sure the one in the center is kind of on the top, so that it looks even on both the left and the right. And then I'm going to let that dry for just a second. This glue dries really fast, and then I'm going to trim off that top row of bricks so that I have a top that is all the same level. And then I will add a tiny bit of glue using my Barely Art Precision Craft glue to the back of the line where the reindeer are all kind of hanging over the edge, and then line that up with the black stamped line of the top of that structure. So if I hadn't wanted to add that second hillside to really push them back farther in the scene, it would have been fine because the bottom of that wall, that snow fort wall, is nice and flat. But because I'm adding it behind that slope, I had to do a little bit of fixing to make sure that it looked like the wall was kind of built up behind it. So I'm gluing the tops of the two trees that are kind of covering it on the left and center to the bricks so that I can slide one of these extra ones in the area that is kind of missing. And I just flipped it upside down to make it work. And then I'm trying to line that up correctly so that it looks like that brick wall is just going to continue behind. And I'm making sure that it hangs over the side so I can trim it down to size. And then there was just a tiny little area next to that center tree where there was like a tiny little gap. So I just took off one of the tops that I had trimmed off and added that behind to fill that in. And now we have what looks like a full brick wall. So I'm just going to trim that so it's flush with the edges of the over the mountain border. And then I can glue that down to my card front. I'm just adding glue down behind everything to make sure it stays nice and secure. I'm going to fix that one little brick section because it looked like it tipped a little bit, and I wanted to make sure everything lined up nice and straight, you know, in the gaps where you could see it. And then I just pressed everything down to place and gave that glue a second to adhere. And then I can start filling in the rest of my scene. So normally I would stamp my sentiment before doing this, but because my sentiment was kind of going to fit around my images, I decided to go ahead and add them first. So there is that second little swoosh from the Yeti or Not stamp set, rather than the one that I had stamped and colored on screen. And then I have my extra Christmas tree with the baubles that's also from the Yeti or Not. So I'm going to glue that down kind of towards the top of the scene, just fill in that empty space on the hillside. And then I'll have Santa standing down in the bottom left corner. And then I want Rudolph to look like he's, you know, kind of taking off and jumping. So I'm putting him at a bit of an angle, and then that's why those little swoosh marks are so important, because that really gives the sense of movement in the scene. So I'll add that back behind his hooves. And then the little flag, like I said, is just an indicator to, you know, show that we're having some reindeer games here. Kind of just blocking off the area. And then I can pop this whole card front in my MISTI so I can get my sentiment lined up correctly. I'm going to stamp that down in some lobster ink. And the sentiment is from the Ho Ho Holidays, and it says, "May your holidays be filled with magic," which I think goes well with the whole theme of Rudolph. And then for the inside, I'm just going to do an insert, which I trimmed down with my paper trimmer. I took a 1/4 inch off the top and side, so it's 4 by 5 1/4. And I stamped the sleigh to kind of fast forward to the end of the movie, because we all know what happens, and the Merry Christmas sentiment, and both of those are also from Ho Ho Holidays. So I'm going to add that to the inside of my card, just line that up centered so we get that nice blue border on all 4 sides. And then, of course, I had to add a bit of Stardust stickles. I mean, come on, this is a Christmas card. So I'm adding that to all of the snow, which is quite a bit. But, you know, if there's any time to really go big with the sparkle, it's the holidays, right? So I added it to the tops of the snow-capped mountains and then to the edge of the snow drifts. And then I realized that the snow bricks are also made of the same snow, so they should also be sparkly. So I just added it where the shading was on each of the bricks, so wherever they showed. And then I also decided to add it to Santa's little outfit, because there was no sparkle down in the lower part of the scene. So I ended up putting that on the white parts of his outfit, and then also a little snow that's kind of swooshing out behind Rudolph's feet. Probably should have added it to his nose as well, but I didn't think of it in the moment, so maybe I'll have to go back and do that after the fact. But that is going to finish off this card. I will lift that up so you can see all of the detail and give you another peek at the inside. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and leave me a comment down below and let me know what your favorite Christmas movie is. I would love to hear it. Make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on if you never want to miss a video. All of the products I use will be listed and linked for you in the description bar below. And if you'd like to keep watching, here is day 2 from the last 2 years of holiday card series. So I hope that you will enjoy those, and thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye-bye!